Okay, so my friend gave me another stupid story of his to edit along with more illustrations. This time it's about a dude he created named Arnold Schwarzenegger. Ooh, gosh, am I even allowed to say this on YouTube? Arnold, this guy. Okay, so right off the bat, one of my critiques is to name characters in a way that is easy for the audience to memorize. Fantasy writers seem to struggle with this the most. They will have a magical character with 18 letters in their name, including 5 apostrophes, 2 hyphens, an ampersand, and an emoji. Using exotic names is fine, especially if you're using them as a world-building technique for a specific culture, but keep them as simple names from that culture. Speaking of culture, chapter 1 of my friend's story begins the plot in Austria, post-World War II, where Arnold, our protagonist, grew up. Throughout the chapter, we get a lot of details about Arnold's father, Gustav, and let's just say, it's not subtle that my friend does not want you to like him. Gustav would beat Arnold, tell Arnold to his face that he just liked his other son Meinhard better, and had no patience to listen to pretty much any of Arnold's concerns or problems. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, my friend made him a Nazi. Like, literally. Arnold's father voluntarily served as a member of the Nazi stormtroops in World War II. So, an immediate critique that came to my mind is that having your antagonist not only be a cold, stern, abusive European father, but also a Nazi, it's just way too cliche and way too much. The laziest ways to make your audience dislike a character is to either make them a Nazi or make them hurt a dog. And the bad father route is serviceable if you absolutely need it, but it's been done a million times. My edit would be, instead of overloading your antagonist with negative character traits, give them 1 or 2 traits and dive into how they affect the antagonist overall. This will not only make the character feel nuanced, but will also allow the audience to come to their own conclusions about the character, which is far more powerful than beating them over the head with But interestingly enough, for as much as my friend focused on him, Arnold's father Gustav wouldn't play that large of a role going forward. The main plot really starts up in Arnold's teenage years, when he goes to a movie theater and sees a film starring the actor Reg Park. In real life, Reg Park is an English actor, bodybuilder, and a multi-time winner of the Mr. Universe competition, one of the biggest bodybuilding competitions in the world. My friend outlined that after seeing his film, Arnold would make Reg Park his idol, and thereafter develop a lifelong passion for acting and bodybuilding to follow in Reg's footsteps. My friend even wrote that Arnold would break into gyms on the weekend to work out when they were closed. Honestly, even though seeing a movie is a really simple motivator for a protagonist, I'm okay with it. Some plots are kicked into gear by life-shattering circumstances or something super weird happening to the protagonist, but you don't necessarily need extraordinary motivators in your narrative, as long as what is happening makes sense in the context of your character. Arnold was an abused kid with a bad father figure, and when he saw Reg Park, he witnessed a big, strong, confident, successful man, and wanted to be like him. Makes sense to me. So the first major roadblock my friend decided to give Arnold was to send him to the military at age 18. This was actually inspired by the real-life law that Austria had at the time that demanded at least 1 year of military service, and was honestly probably the reason my friend set the story in Austria at all. Professional bodybuilding and serving in the military don't really go together, and this would have been an interesting hurdle for Arnold to overcome, had my friend not handled it so stupidly. And what I mean by that is, Arnold straight up went AWOL from his military encampment and hitchhiked through Austria to get to the Junior Mr. Europe bodybuilding competition. My friend wrote that Arnold didn't even bring a change of clothes to compete in, so he had to use another contestant's sweaty Speedo, a detail I could have lived without. And just to give some context, the dudes who enter these contests undergo intensive training for months, if not years, but because my friend knows everyone loves an underdog story, Arnold actually ends up winning first place. After that, he hitchhiked back to his military camp, snuck in, and tried to act like nothing happened. But of course, by winning the Junior Mr. Europe competition, his name was plastered over all of the TVs in Austria, so his commanding officers found out and put him in solitary confinement for a week. After his stay there, he was taken to the lieutenant's office and told that because he won the competition, he would actually be used as an example of a perfect soldier for the Austrian military. He was transferred to kitchen duty as a punishment, but it was really so that he could eat all the extra food he wanted to bulk up. So at this point you might be thinking to yourself, well, okay, that wasn't that stupid, and you're right. Going AWOL from the military was dumb, and thinking he could get away with it was dumber. But I honestly might have done the same thing in Arnold's shoes. What is stupid is how my friend decided to make the Austrian military continuously bend over backwards for Arnold even after they put him in the kitchen. They did stuff like hire welders to build Arnold workout equipment out of spare metal parts they found around the boot camp. There is a section in the chapter where they even build him a custom tank that could act as a portable gym in case if Arnold was ever in the field, he would still have weights. Funny enough, I know exactly where my friend got his inspiration from. He started the outline for this story after seeing the first Captain America movie. When Steve Rogers becomes a super soldier, the military parades him around as a patriotic symbol of perfection and power. This is pretty much the same thing that happens to Arnold, except that Arnold isn't a multi-million-dollar genetically enhanced metahuman. He is just a guy. At least that is what my friend kept trying to get across. The story is supposed to be about what your average everyday dude could be if he put his mind to it. But then crazy stuff happens, like Arnold winning a competition where he is voted the best built man in Europe at age 19. My critique is when creating a premise for your narrative, make sure your plot points don't betray it. Keep focused on what your core message is and if your story still centers around it. So after serving his year in the military, my friend wrote that Arnold would take up bodybuilding full time, and the first thing he set his eyes on was the Mr. Universe competition in London. During his year in the military, Arnold had been in 3 bodybuilding competitions and 1 powerlifting competition, and had placed first in all of them. To mix it up a bit, and to keep Arnold motivated, my friend decided that when Arnold competed in the Mr. Universe competition, he would only place a soul-crushing 2nd. I roll my eyes at this because any other 19-year-old bodybuilder in the world would kill to just be in the top 5 of Mr. Universe at all. But you know, to balance out the terrible misfortune of not coming in first, my friend wrote that one of the Mr. Universe judges would be so overcome with how amazing Arnold's physique was that he would allow Arnold to stay in his home and receive training even though Arnold had next to no money. And while living with this coach in London, Arnold would just happen to meet Reg Park, his idol, and they would become workout buddies. Reg acted like a mentor to Arnold and guided him through the process of professional lifting. So the next time Arnold entered the Mr. Universe competition, he won, becoming the youngest man to ever do it at only 20 years old. It's kind of like how in anime the protagonist has all these great accomplishments and looks like 30, but they're actually only like 18. Oh, and just for good measure, my friend wrote that Arnold would win the contest 3 more times in a row, becoming the first person to ever do that too. The last win was probably the most special though, as Arnold ended up beating Reg Park himself in the Mr. Universe finals. This is basically the quintessential student must overcome the master plot point. So after getting bored with wiping the floor with the biggest men in London, Arnold moved to America to compete in the Mr. Olympia contest, the granddaddy of all bodybuilding competitions. But of course, mere mortals couldn't stand against Arnold, and he won Mr. Olympia on his first try, becoming the youngest person to ever win at just 23 years old. And if you know anything about my friend, wins come in bunches, so he wrote that Arnold would win Mr. Olympia 5 more times, in a row. Do I even need to say my edit for this? After 21 competitions and 18 first place wins, Arnold finally decided that he would have mercy on us weak beings of flesh and blood and retire from bodybuilding to take up acting full time. But being Austrian and all, when Arnold did end up getting his first role, his accent was so thick that his lines had to be dubbed in after. His last name became a bit of a problem too. Instead of Schwarzenegger, my friend decided Arnold would call himself, and I'm not kidding, Arnold Strong. World-shattering imagination, right? But did not speaking intelligible English stop Arnold from succeeding at everything he did with acting? Not at all. Arnold Strong won a Golden Globe for Best Acting Debut in a Motion Picture for his portrayal of Joe Santo in a movie called Stay Hungry. But for some reason, my friend chose to make things even more complicated and stupid than they already were, because he also wrote that Joe Santo wasn't Arnold's debut role. That would be his role of Hercules when he started the movie, well, Hercules. This detail was included because my friend wanted to give a chapter where the Golden Globe Academy shrugs off tradition and ignores their own rules to give Arnold an award he deserves. Instead, it just comes off as convoluted and unrealistic. But using that Golden Globe award as narrative justification, my friend wrote that Arnold would have a meteoric rise in Hollywood. His peak would come when Arnold starred in movies such as Terminator, The Running Man, Total Recall, and Predator. Arnold became a renowned action star and one of the most recognizable actors in the world, and stayed a fixture in Hollywood for basically 2 decades. And then the story takes a hard turn. A hard right turn specifically, when Arnold suddenly declares that he's going to run as the Republican governor of California. Yeah, I didn't think this was going to get political either. Because of the hype surrounding him as an actor, his candidacy immediately became national and international news, with media outlets dubbing him the Governator, a play on words from his movie The Terminator, and if you ask me, just as uninspired as the nickname Arnold Strong. But the puns go deeper than that. The type of political race that Arnold ran in was called a recall election, a process by which an emergency vote is held to remove or recall an incumbent. Now, do you remember the movies my friend made Arnold star in? One was Total Recall, and the other was Running Man, both titles that foreshadowed Arnold's eventual political ambitions. Arnold eventually does win the election too, impossibly becoming the governor of California. A note I wrote for my friend is that it's absolutely fine to include foreshadowing in your narratives, but you have to do it in a way that is organic to the process. If this were a fantasy, having Arnold be part of prophetic experiences literally sharing the same names as his destiny would be fine. But since this is supposed to be based more in reality, foreshadowing needs to be based in character actions and handled a bit less like a fist to the face. But since my friend created a whole fake cast for the film Predator, he decided to use two of those characters he made up for this political arc. One was a dude he named Jesse Ventura, and the other was Sonny Landham. Both these men were action movie co-stars to Arnold in the movie Predator, and both would enter races to become governor. Jesse won his race in the state of Minnesota, while Sonny lost his in Kentucky. My friend's logic behind all this is as follows. It would seem too unrealistic and convenient if Arnold could just flawlessly go from acting into politics, seeing as he has no background in law or civil service. So instead of it just being Arnold, the other action stars would join in too. The more people do something, the less convenient it becomes. But he also wanted to show that becoming governor was difficult, so he made Sonny Landham lose his race to add realism. That way, Arnold winning his race would become more grounded. So, I don't have time to get into everything that is wrong with my friend's reasoning, but I think the most important edit would be this. Making multiple characters do a stupid thing is not better than making a single character do a stupid thing. This is a technique I refer to as muddying the waters to make it look deep, and if anything, it's worse. Arnold had previously demonstrated no want to become a politician, and even if he did, he had literally zero training in how to run a successful campaign, let alone convince people to vote for him. Having him run and win is already unrealistic. Having two other completely unqualified dudes go down the same path only makes it that much more unbelievable. Instead, an edit I would give would be to go through the plot points in the outline and see where you can organically introduce believable, consistent justification for the story progressing the way it does. That is way better than giving the audience whiplash with a huge change of pace. And actually, that's where we're gonna wrap this up. Again, just like the Steve Kerr story, there is a ton more I wanted to include, like a photo shoot for a gay magazine, a sexual misconduct allegation, and then Arnold's weird love affair with this car line named Hummer, but those are all stories for another time. If you like what you saw and wanted to support the channel so I can keep helping out my friend with his stupid stories, instead of a Patreon or anything like that, you can just check out my book on Amazon, and I'll leave a link in the description below. Hope you all keep writing, and I'll see you again soon.